According to researchers, the Egyptian pyramids were built as monumental tombs for the pharaohs, who commissioned these grand structures for themselves. The pyramids are regarded as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, most of Egypt's great and small. Pyramids were constructed between the 3rd and 6th dynasties. These majestic and mysterious architectural marvels have endured more than 4,000 years of history, standing resilient through the rise and fall of civilizations. They are primarily concentrated around the Egyptian capital of Cairo, on the west bank of the Nile in Giza. To this day, the pyramids still tower proudly against the sky, continuing to attract millions of visitors from across the globe. Yet through those for millennia, the pyramids have remained cloaked in mystery, steeped in an aura of the supernatural. Among the most terrifying are the inscriptions and spells said to guard the pharaoh's eternal rest. Ancient warnings proclaimed that anyone who dared disturb the peace of the pharaohs would be welcomed by the gates of the underworld. These so-called curses were meant to serve as dire warnings to those greedy enough to covet the priceless. Treasures hidden within the royal tombs, promising only death in return. History itself seems to have borne out these warnings. For centuries, those bold enough to enter the sealed chambers of the pharaohs were the tomb raiders. Adventurers, archaeologists, or surveyors were said to have fallen victim to the curse. If they did not die on the spot, many reportedly succumbed later to strange, incurable illnesses, suffering agonizing deaths that only deepened the legend of the pharaoh's curse. In November 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered and opened the tomb KV62 of Pharaoh Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings. This discovery unearthed more than 5,000 priceless artifacts, including treasures, jewelry, clothing, weapons, and household items. The excavation shocked the entire world. On February 18, 1923, while the excavation was on the verge of new triumphs, Lord Arafat, who had invested a great fortune to support Carter's work, suddenly fell gravely ill and died shortly afterward. His sister wrote in her diary that before his death, he was burning with fever and kept crying out, "I have heard its breath. I must go with it." Not long after, another scientist who had accidentally toppled a stone wall while entering the tomb also died from a strange illness that resembled a nervous breakdown. An X-ray specialist who examined the mummy later became weak and frail and eventually passed away. 2 years after the excavation of the tomb, as many as 22 members of the team had mysteriously died under unexplained circumstances. From then on, stories of the death curse spread widely, and the tombs, spells, and Pharaoh's curse only deepened public fear. In 1924, Egyptian-born British biologist Hugh Evelyn White led a group of curious visitors into the tomb. To everyone's horror, shortly after returning, he hanged himself. Before his death, he bit his finger and wrote a note in his own blood, confessing that his death was caused by the Pharaoh's curse, and that he was filled with regret he could only take with him to meet God. Even more astonishing and baffling was the death of Cairo Museum director Kamen, who was also believed to have fallen victim to the curse. He had openly mocked the idea of the Pharaoh's curse, boldly declaring that he was perfectly healthy after years of contact with mummies. Yet less than 4 weeks after his statement, at the age of only 52, he suddenly died under mysterious circumstances. What shocked people even more was that on the very day of his death, he had appeared completely healthy, personally supervising workers as they packed artifacts excavated from the tomb of Tutankhamun. All of these events only added to the legend of the Pharaoh's curse, shrouding it in an even darker veil of mystery. The treasures buried within the tomb inspired both fear and fascination terrifying to behold. yet irresistible to the curious who wondered if this was the pharaoh's intention all along. This led people to question, why did so many who came into contact with the pharaoh's tombs meet untimely deaths? Were the curses inscribed on the walls truly that powerful and divine? One theory suggests that the walls of the burial chambers were coated with a pinkish and greenish-gray powder that may have emitted deadly radiation or toxic substances capable of killing intruders. Other scholars have speculated that the ancient Egyptians had advanced enough knowledge to use highly poisonous insects or chemical toxins as weapons to guard their tombs against desecration. In recent years, scientists have explored biological explanations. In 1963, a biologist and medical professor from Keio University reported that, based on his experiments on archaeologists and excavation staff, every individual who entered the tombs carried traces of toxic spores in their bodies. Inhaling these pathogens would inflame the respiratory system, eventually causing suffocation and death. But why were these deadly microbes able to survive so fiercely and endure for thousands of years inside the tombs? How could they remain alive for nearly 4,000 years within the mummies themselves? Even modern scientists have been unable to fully explain this phenomenon. In 1983, after many years of research, a French female doctor presented a conclusion. The cause of death for those who excavated or entered the tombs was not supernatural, but rather a hypersensitive reaction to toxic bacteria. She explained that when the ancient pharaohs were buried, they were entombed not only with gold, jewels, and clothing, but also with fruits and food offerings. Over centuries, these organic materials rotted and produced dangerous bacteria invisible to the naked eye. The spores filled the sealed chambers, and anyone who inhaled them risked acute respiratory infection and, often, death. In fact, one professor who entered a newly opened tomb to copy inscriptions died shortly afterward due to exposure to these deadly microorganisms. To this day, her explanation is considered one of the most reasonable scientific theories. But then comes the lingering question, what about the mysterious inscriptions, the so-called curses carved into the pharaohs' tombs? Some researchers now suggest that the truth may not lie in magic at all, but in the very architecture of the pyramids themselves. The design, the tunnels, and the geometric structure could potentially generate radiation, magnetic vibrations, or even subtle energy fields, what some call the pyramid effect. Could this hidden power be the real source behind the legendary curse? So, which explanation is correct, and which is myth? Each perspective offers its own reasoning. But unlocking the true mystery of the Pharaoh's curse is far from simple as of today. It remains an enigma that science has yet to solve. Humanity has spent countless pages writing about the Great Pyramid of Gizeh, ancient wonder that still guards secrets no one has ever fully decoded. Deep within its chambers, hidden in the desert of Egypt, lies a mystery that has unsettled even the bravest of men. It is said that after just one night inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, the mighty general Napoleon Bonaparte, known for his courage and brilliancy, merged, shaken and terrified. What exactly happened during that night? This question has intrigued scientists, historians, and truth seekers for centuries. Let us travel back to the year 1798, when Egypt was still under British control. Napoleon led his expeditionary forces into this ancient land, aiming to expand France's influence in North Africa and the East. But like many others before him, he too was fascinated by the mysteries of the pyramids and the timeless history of Egypt. Driven by his insatiable curiosity, Napoleon established the Institute of Egypt, bringing with him scholars, engineers, astronomers, and archaeologists to study the country's wonders. During this campaign, his men discovered one of history's greatest treasures, the Rosetta Stone. In 1799, a breakthrough that would later unlock the secrets of Egyptian hieroglyphs. But beyond the battlefield and the scholarly triumphs, there was one moment Napoleon never spoke of again. Wishing to experience the enigma of the Great Pyramid for himself, he requested to spend a night alone inside the king's chamber. When dawn arrived, he stepped out of the pyramid pale, disturbed and visibly shaken. His aides, alarmed by his expression, pressed him to reveal what he had seen. Yet Napoleon refused, declaring that no one should ever mention that night again. To this day, the mystery remains. What did the great emperor witness in the darkness of the pyramid's heart? Many years later, as Napoleon was nearing the end of his life, a close friend asked him what he had experienced inside the pyramid. Napoleon was about to reveal it, but in the end he changed his mind. He simply shook his head and said, "No, nothing. You would never understand." Thus, whatever Napoleon had gone through inside the Great Pyramid remained a secret he carried with him forever. Since then, there have been countless speculations about his strange encounter in Egypt, according to an unverified source. Napoleon might have witnessed visions of his own destiny while inside the pyramid. An interesting fact is that Napoleon Bonaparte was not the only one to have mysterious experiences inside the pyramid. Later, in 1930, a British journalist also spent a night in the king's chamber, just as Napoleon once had. He described his experience in a famous book titled A Search in Egypt. The king's chamber, made entirely of granite, was where he chose to sit on a stone slab with only a single candle burning. As night fell and darkness thickened, the faint glow of the candle barely pierced through the heavy gloom. It was then that he claimed he could see ghostly figures surrounding him. Though terrified, he forced himself to remain. These apparitions soon vanished, but what followed was far more terrifying. He began to feel his body paralyzed, unable to move. At that moment, figures dressed in ceremonial robes appeared. The spirits led him into a secret chamber hidden within the pyramid. There, he felt his soul slowly leaving his body, entering into a realm of death. He said he could even see a silver cord connecting his motionless body lying on the floor to his spirit, which hovered within the pyramid's depths. The ancient spirits also revealed to him secrets about the Great Pyramid, that it was built during the 4th dynasty, between 2580 and 2560 BC, the very era when the legendary civilization of Atlantis is said to have existed. Perhaps this glorious civilization was real after all, but a great flood, as described in the Bible, had swallowed the continent beneath the sea thousands of years ago. He was even taken on a journey through the hidden chambers of the pyramid, where the spirits unveiled their mysteries. After experiencing all of this, he awoke the next morning, convinced that everything he had seen and felt was real. To him, the spirits he encountered seemed as alive as any human being within the pyramid. However, experts argue that these beings did not exist in flesh and blood, but rather as spirits coming to affirm that life after death truly exists. If this theory is correct, it proves that the soul is real. When our physical body decays, the soul continues to live on. Yet for the soul to remain whole, the body must also be preserved. Perhaps this is why the ancient Egyptians placed the tombs of their pharaohs inside the pyramids, a place found to have the ideal conditions for preserving the dead. Later, scientists began to study the resting place inside this chamber, a granite block, also known as the Stone of the Spirit, the very spot where Napoleon once sat. They discovered that this stone generates an electromagnetic field capable of causing mild shocks. In addition, a former NASA employee detected radiation coming from a chamber near the King's Chamber, which could provide a plausible explanation for some of the strange phenomena reported there. Further studies revealed that the radiation levels suggested the top of the pyramid was about 1,000 years older than its base. This sparked numerous theories and heated debates. Some speculated that the upper part of the pyramid had been built first, originally constructed upside down, and later placed in its current position through some kind of advanced technology. In reality, however, the cause of these bizarre phenomena inside the pyramid remains unclear. All possible answers are still nothing more than speculation. The secrets of Egypt's pyramids continue to stand as one of the greatest mysteries of our world. Later, a Scottish journalist named W. Scott Elliott, also a scholar of esoteric sciences, known for his works on Atlantis, lost worlds, and ancient mysteries, conducted his own research. According to his studies, along with those of other scholars, evidence of great events in human history was hidden within the mathematical proportions of the Great Pyramid. Measurements such as side lengths, perimeters, and diagonal lines within the structure seemed to encode this knowledge. Other experts also investigated these ideas, including David Davidson, a structural and civil engineer who devoted 25 years of his life to studying the great and mysterious Pyramid of Giza. His research and investigations were later published in the book The Great Pyramid, Its Divine Message. In this work, Davidson illustrated his findings with 80 pages of detailed diagrams and 97 tables covering archaeology, history, and astronomical star maps, all presented to prove the accuracy of the pyramid's hidden mysteries that he claimed to have uncovered. Another scientist also claimed to have found evidence of the mysteries hidden within the Great Pyramid. This was Professor John Greaves, an Oxford astronomer who studied the Great Pyramid in 1637. Together with Colonel Workman, he spent his personal fortune researching this subject. One of their most intriguing findings was the ancient Egyptians' awareness of the shifting of Earth's axis. The pyramids of Giza, they believed, were constructed to align with the Earth's axis, more precisely, to point to the celestial North Pole. But throughout the ages, this pole has shifted. In the past, the North Star was Thuban. Today, it is Polaris in the constellation Ursa Minor, and in the future, it will be Vega. If one were to draw a straight line from the entrance of the pyramid on the spring equinox, between March 22nd and March 25th, in the years 4000 BC, 2000 AD, and 10,000 AD, that line would point directly toward the respective North Stars, Thuban, Polaris, and Vega. Vega, in particular, has long been considered a cosmic center, a destination where the soul journeys after completing its evolution within the solar system. But the question remains, could these calculations have any connection to the spirits said to dwell within the mighty Great Pyramid? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue the discussion together. For now, thank you for joining us on Mystery World Explorer. See you in the next video.